So I like it. I like it. Of course, Hecarim aimed at perfection. He's played a lot of that champion.
So let's talk a bit about that Direwolves game against the Chiefs. They tried something very different to what we've expected. The Morgana mid was kind of their outside pick, their off-meta pick. It didn't really work against the Twisted Fate. It felt like it was exploited a little bit. So I'd like to see the return of the Xerath, the return of the carry flavor of the mid. Sharp has been flirting around the top spot in the Oceanic Challenger for a lot of this season. He's a very talented mechanical player, and he kind of limited himself too much on that Morgana. And kind of the same story from King. He's gone off so many times in the OPL already, but both of them were kind of afterthoughts in that series, and we're looking to them to really solidify their top status and come through with a big performance this game.
Yeah, and King sort of getting a little bit outperformed as far as the Graves versus the Kalista matchup goes as well, and Radia just ran away with that one. But Xerath and Azir both going to be the second bans coming through from Rich Gang. A lot of respect going over to Sharp, but Lissandra and Kassadin taken off the board here as well. So mid-focused is this ban phase. In fact, all of those champions have been played in mid.
Yeah, I mean, 5 mid champions. I mean, 6 if you want to talk about some Oceanic exports like Keen with the Hecarim ban. Probably not an Oceanic mid champion right now, but still the potential coming out there. And that's really decimating the mid champion pool. Xerath's not available. There's no real safe blind pick mid choices, so probably going to be that 5th pick coming out big for Direwolves.
The LeBlanc is still available here, potentially in the hands of Sharp or Chenny Boy if they want to pick them up. But Huey, he's going to prioritize his Rek'Sai. She was fantastic for him in the last matchup. We'll see what Direwolves answer with here. They're taking their time just a little bit. See what they put on. Of course, Perfections has the opportunity to go with the Aurelia here, which he looked fantastic on. Actually scored himself an MVP. And
the Rumble was definitely the other flavor. They really struggled on the Rumble versus Aurelia matchup. Aurelia's so strong in so many cases. She's kind of the equivalent of Arya, very safe blind pick top laner. Smart to go with, but they're really kind of thinking about going back to this Kalista, which, look, it didn't really work out for either King or the team comp last time. It kind of puts you in that awkward position where you have to really comp around that champion. So I'm surprised to see it locked in, but we know its potential. Yeah. Maybe in this game they'll be able to unlock it after struggling that first time out.
Yeah, and Direwolves actually sort of playing against the Kalista and failing, and then playing with the Kalista and failing, and it's sort of like it hasn't quite worked out for them yet, but we'll see whether it does this time around as King tries his hand once more. But picking Kalista this far up the pick and ban, very, very risky, because of course Huey, he could play the Vi and they could put Rich Homie on that Rek'Sai if they wanted to.
Yeah, we haven't seen top Rek'Sai in competitive, but it is quite a decent pick, even with the nerfs. Fairly immovable because you have that sustain if you just burrow up in lane. You have the options there, but you have to think they'll maybe look in other areas to counter the Kalista coming through. Of course, they could take away the Morgana, could still be a mid lane Annie, and of course a Morgana pickup coming through for Direwolves. And they could just go for the very strong front line. I mean, the start of a good front line is the Aurelia pick.
Yeah, that's true. And Chenny Boy looking to lock that one away for Rich Homie. Yes, he has. So he's going to lock that one in. And that does give the Morgana over to Direwolves here if they want to include that with an Annie. That means one of those champions is going to be going towards another lane. King looking at Urgot, but that's not going to be picked up.
That's not going to be the Urgot. They're actually mousing over the Twisted Fate here. Probably not going to be the Twisted Fate pickup just because Sharp could have picked it for himself. But maybe a shout out to Chief Swiffer and his performance in that last series.
Yeah, he definitely did very well. Soul Strikes looking at a possible Rumble Jarvan combo, and it is going to be locked in. Perfection up on that Rumble yet again. It was a difficult matchup for him last time, of course, Aurelia versus Rumble, but maybe he's got something to prove.
Yeah, opting into it again is very interesting. Rumble Jarvan combo is so strong. It's more forgiving.
But Gnar was available. They could have gone for the Narvan.
They could have gone for the Narvan, which would have been a very similar teamfight flavor. They're opting, and maybe there's something they know that we don't. Maybe Perfection just had a one-off bad game, and they're convinced that they can turn it back here.
Yeah, and still managed to have some great equalizers when he was getting ganked as well, turning around a couple of things, managing to pick up a few kills there on the bottom side of the map with some teleports, but in the end, not quite able to keep up with the snowball of the Chiefs. And you know, with the likes of Kalista on their side here as well, with the Tibbers stun now available for their team to root them down on that equalizer, as well as within that Cataclysm, it might be coming through, but a few other options now being opted for. And this would not surprise me if Destiny locks in the Morgana, but no, it's going to be the Janna.
And the Orianna for Chenny Boy, one of his standard champions, something he's brought out a lot of times. Struggled on it last week.
Yeah.
But you can see the potential of the blind pick Orianna. There are counters out there. LeBlanc is a very difficult matchup. But because the mid lane matchup's kind of been shattered by all these bans, you kind of have to go with what you play.
Yeah, and Sharp does have a few options as far as his champion pool is concerned. He played a lot of Ziggs a little while ago, of course, fell out of the meta just a little bit, but he was known to be fantastic on that champion. And Zed is still available. There are the melee assassins for that mid lane if they want to, but of course, Orianna very strong against the likes of that kind of play. And Chuffer taking a while. He's thinking about what he wants to do. Of course, they can put Annie in the mid lane if they want to and pick up Morgana.
I guess I'd probably like to see Lulu just because they already have the Callista. They have damage coming from the top lane. It's not a super 1 or 2 threat comp. There's 3 or 4 options. Even Annie does good damage from support. And we do see the Lulu being moused over. It probably makes the most sense to counter the wave clear and give them a few more utility options.
Yeah, and also very safe in that mid lane as well. Going to turn that lane into a bit of a farm off, but you have to think that that might give Chenny Boy the opportunity to really get going on this Orianna. Not going to have as much pressure put on him here unless Soul Strikes can come around for some sweet ganks.
And kind of the issue is there, you also let Rek'Sai farm her jungle a little bit more. Don't have to focus on relieving pressure even against this Jarvan. There's gank pressure early with a Lulu, which does do decent burst damage, but in the late game, they're going to have Irelia, Rek'Sai, Orianna, 3 very strong late game champions. And Perfection's also opted into this matchup once again, after basically being torn apart in the last series. You could reason and say, okay, it was the Twisted Fate that pushed it over, but he was struggling in lane long before Twisted Fate hit 6.
Yeah, he was. I mean, Twisted Fate wasn't there for the solo kill that Swiper did manage to pick up. Of course, understanding the spikes on Irelia very, very well, but Perfection's... He's a guy that has been on this scene for so incredibly long, has been sort of talked about as one of the best players in the region, and we'll see whether he can prove it here because that last performance just wasn't really up to snuff. No,
especially considering his previous performance in the past and just last week. It was a big step down, but there were a lot of tools being put into him. It was almost like Chiefs had a target on his back. We saw the Twisted Fate ganks, we saw the jungle ganks. There was a lot of pressure played to Perfection. And he just couldn't really deal with it. I saw your little sly smirk there. But opting into it a second time, it's a bit curious for me.
Yeah, it is definitely interesting. And there is a lot of power across all of these lanes. If you guys want to let us know exactly who you think is going to be taking first blood in this game, remember to use that hashtag IamOPL in order to let us know and see whether you're going to be right here because there's a lot of kill pressure being able to put down. And Chuffer, for example, on this Annie, has played a lot of it and on his way through the OPL thus far. We'll see whether he can go off on that champion again because he's going to be thrown into these fights and can then throw a Tibbers even further. It's like some sort of weird leapfrog thing going on where you throw an Annie and she throws a Tibbers and then Tibbers throws a whole lot of fire.
A lot of throwing going on in your analogy here.
Lots of throwing. We'll see whether one of these teams throws as well.
Always that potential. Oh boy.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. But what's your lane to watch this game as far as getting the momentum for either team?
I mean, my eyes are going to be just drawn to the top lane because I need to see what it is about Perfection that he wants to opt into, what is a difficult matchup. We've seen Rumble Irelia for many seasons now, and there's the peaks and troughs, there's all the specifics of it, but after getting solo killed and then being singled out to choose that matchup again, as you say, the Narfin combo was up. Maybe it was just a situation where they didn't realize that Nar had made it through the bans and picks, but it should have been a consideration. Okay, it opens up the Lulu pick because you have a bit more damage coming from your top lane, but you're opting into what has been a very difficult matchup for you already once today.
And they had to react to a very interesting ban phase as well with seriously mid-focused ban phase. So it might have been the fact that they were put on the back foot just a little bit and had to come up with a comp on the fly. And this one, it has a very obvious idea of what it wants to do. Of course, Direwolves now want to be putting on a lot of mid-game pressure to counter that of the Rich Gang style, which I think is very intelligent.
Look, it makes a lot of sense. They've got the Callista for the late-game insurance. Even when you look at the Orianna, Rek'Sai, Irelia combo, there's always that carry potential coming out from the Callista, and they do have multiple damage sources. Okay, Lulu doesn't do a lot of damage, but does respectable damage. Rumble has a lot of damage potential, obviously struggled to output it last game. Should be a bit different without the global pressure of the Twisted Fate. They have a very balanced damage comp, but in the late game, make no mistake, it's a protect the Callista comp.
Oh yeah. And of course, with that wild growth, it's going to be a little bit easier here, and Chuffer will see whether he can sort of play peel for his Callista as well as you know, he has in the past.
I mean, Shuffer, again, it's 2 games, 2 wins on the Annie. It's definitely a standout performer. It makes a lot of sense. He's a former mid laner, so he was aggressive laner before. He can be aggressive support with the Annie.
Shuffer's been a former everything
That's
laner,
true.
in my opinion. I've seen him on teams playing jungle, on teams playing AD. That was his last role, of course.
But he was always aggressive. That was that was the personality trait that's propelled him to all these.
The only constant is this aggression.
The assertive play, and he'll need it again on the Annie. So many tools with the Fate's Call to be able to get the perfect Tibbers, but it might even have to be a Fate's Call into a defensive Tibbers, depending on how off or how big this Kalista can get.
Yeah, or throw that Tibbers down and be aware of your stun in these team fights so he can stun up those that want to sort of launch onto this Kalista like Rich Homie, but with all of that extra tenacity, it's probably going to shrug that off relatively quickly. We'll see whether the dancing from King is going to be up to snuff. And we know King is this amazing farming AD carry, really brilliant at getting the most out of his laning phase in order to propel himself into that late game effectively. Loves the likes of the Sivir, who can farm especially well, and of course that Corki. But we are onto the Rift, ladies and gentlemen, with Rich Gang taking on Direwolves for our last match of the week here for the OPL. And we'll see who takes it down. Rich Gang coming off a victory, and Direwolves suffering at the hands of the Chiefs just a little bit.
And I believe Chenny Boy is trying to arrest the 0-3 start for Orianna so far in the OPL. Of course, Moya twice, and Chenny Boy himself falling down on that champion.
Yeah.
Other picks have just been that much more successful.
Just not quite able to make that champion the safe pick that she used to be. Now, not quite that situation. A bit of a 0% pick at this stage, but Direwolves, a very aggressive movement through the jungle here. Seems like they want to fight fire with fire here against Rich Gang.
And then this is a repeat performance from their game against the Chiefs, where they also try to get those aggressive wards down. They've obviously got something they're trying to spot about the Rich Gang start. Look, if you can throw off Rich Gang, they're in a team that's been so tunneled on keeping up that perfect Dragon score, fell away in the last series, but they're always about controlling those neutrals.
Oh yeah, and Rich Gang, they do know that there was vision gleaned here. Of course, that forward ward did not go down from the Direwolves to try and spot out any sort of lane swap, but it doesn't matter. Standard lanes are going to ensue here, and of course, Rich Gang, they're going to be happy about that because Rich Homie going to be able to abuse this this Rumble early on.
Yeah, seeing if he can do his best swiper impression on this Aurelia in the repeat matchup. Just follow the same build path, go for the same power points because it worked out so well for Chief's top laner.
Oh yeah, see whether he can get another solo kill, but of course Perfections, as we mentioned, might have something to prove here as Huey going to finish off this Gromp, head towards that blue buff and start putting this jungle on farm. Of course, Rek'Sai just wants to be farming as much as possible, not even going to go to the blue second. This is what Huey tends to do. He goes to a smaller camp afterwards and then picks up his first big camp after that.
It's interesting to see that. I mean, also we saw King throw out the Sentinel and spotted out the Gromps being taken, so he could try to aggressively control the minion wave and bottom lane as much as possible, knowing no potential for a lane swap.
Not quite yet as Sharp. Going to try and farm up this wave. Of course, hits level 2 first, but Chenny Boy getting some nice command attacks down in order to put the pressure onto this Lulu. But this lane is probably going to be a bit of a farm fest here, as the help picks is going to help out Sharp in staying healthy and warding off a lot of this damage. Both of these champions work very similarly.
I mean, in the early levels, you give the wave pushing advantage to Lulu. She has more AoE clear. But as the game goes on, as you start to get levels in your Q or W, you really match that clear, and it becomes absolutely a farm fest from about level 5 onwards.
Oh, yeah. Direwolves actually looking to pick up level 2 now. Of course, Day Shifted was able to shove that wave relatively quickly. That W being picked up first from King means now he has the renders. Huey coming around to pick up a kill onto Sharp. They unbarrow for the knock up there as well, but so quick is this Lulu. Able to make it to safety without even using a flash.
Yeah, using some of the potions, or both potions being popped, does give the sustained advantage to Chenny Boy. And you know that that's not going to be the last time Huey shows his face in the mid lane.
Oh, definitely not. Equilibrium Strike going to be used onto Perfections here, but Rich Homie getting taken down so low, gets the silence. There's the first blood solo kill, and we were talking about Perfections having something to prove. There it is.
Absolutely, point proof with the very aggressive play. Rich Homie keeping his flash up is honestly just a mistake. I expected the early flash, but not using it at all. First blood solo kill coming out to perfection.
Yeah, and Rich Homie thankfully has that teleport in order to get up to get some of that down, but Day Shifted also getting pressured out of lane here by King as well. Direwolves turning it on across the board this game, and this is a very different matchup here for Rich Gang, and they might need to reset their minds a little.
Double amp term comes out from Perfection. It'll give him good harassment stats. It'll allow him to push the wave a little bit better with the flat AP. It's not quite the health to give him a bit of defensive insurance. Seems like he's going all out aggressive.
Yeah, and there's the flag and drag to come through. Rich Homie, of course, with that flash still available, is going to flash out of that knock-up and gets the ward down here as well. But that summoner spell's down, and Direwolves able to put the pressure continuously now onto this Aurelia. He's going to launch himself into the face of Perfections, but Perfection's not too worried about it at this stage, looking to try and get that overheated Flame Spitter onto Rich Homie.
Rek'Sai is positioned for a lane gank, though. Actually, both junglers in the top.
Yeah, there's the flash. The Unburrow doesn't actually come off here against Perfection. Just Soul Strike finds his way in. Huey, bit squishy at this stage of the game as this Rek'Sai. A nice defensive knock up onto Soul Strikes to stop that aggression from coming through. But Soul Strikes, fantastic game sense, knowing that Huey would be making an appearance to this top side.
He actually noted that he missed his EQ, so flashed during the thing to move the knock up. He got the double knock up, but able to be taken out. As in the bottom lane, so much aggression from this Direwolves duo.
Yeah, the dive actually coming in from the Direwolves here into the bottom side. Day Shifted getting taken down very, very low. And Direwolves still relatively healthy after being right under that turret.
They didn't take aggro importantly. They're just trying to harass Day Shifted away from as much CS as possible. This is a Corki lane, remember, one of the strongest lane bullies in the game. But with the Janna, with the lack of support, struggling against Kalista.
Yeah, and now at a 14 CS advantage here as well for a Kalista in this early game. That is terrifying as Rich Homie doing his very best to farm out this wave. Huey, he's set up shop up here.
Definitely the camp is on. It's going to be difficult to get a lane gank in, but they're going for it.
Oh, Perfections wants to try and just pick up the kill, but it's not enough, and Huey finally gets it. Oh my goodness! The minions pick up Rich Homie.
Yeah, Rich Homie wasn't able to drop the minion aggro, so with so many resources being used, all of Huey's time in the early game being used, they only get a trade kill, and it looks like it opens up Dragon.
Yeah, no teleports available for either top laners here, and of course Huey only level 5, not able to use that Void Rush in order to get down here. And with 4 members, Direwolves are going to secure the first Dragon. And we spoke about Rich Gang relying on Dragon control, making sure that they have control very early on. Those 6% stats are now available for Direwolves, as that was an interesting interaction from King, if you spotted that, sort of slipping through the wall.
I did see that. It was some interesting gameplay mechanics happening all there. As Day Shifted tries to back aggressively, and Chuffa says, no, 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 and forces him to back much slower.
Oh, yeah, and Chuffa, as you mentioned, known for his aggressive play, and doesn't matter that he's this squishy Annie at level 4 here in the bottom lane, still playing as if he's playing mid.
I don't think he pays attention to his base stats whatsoever. He just wants to go in and get those kills.
Oh, yeah, 50 CS now to 35 here on the bottom side of the map. Beautiful play from King to keep himself up there. He's going to go back and probably pick up that recurve bow, and or maybe even that Vampiric Scepter to keep himself healthy in this lane.
I've seen a lot of recurve bow starts. People have been foregoing what was the initial Kalista build, which was the Vamp Scepter into the Hurricane, the recurve bow, and thus the Hurricane. It gives you more aggressive lane pushing options. It just doesn't give you that defensive flexibility of the Vamp Scepter.
Yeah, of course, not deciding to go for that this time. Rich Homie taking a bit from this Perfections Rumble. Does have the equalizer now. Wants to try and turn this around, but Huey, he's back yet again. And the equalizer not going to be enough. And that's just the 2 versus 1 kill here for Rich Gang.
Yeah, Huey's tent is just getting more and more upgraded in the bottom. It's pretty much a 5-star tent at this point.
Oh, yeah.
As in the bottom lane, more aggressive positioning from Chuffa.
Yeah, and Soul Strike's now utilizing the fact that Huey is in that top side. He's going to get pinged out here by Chenny Boy just a little bit, who's taken the barrier here for a little bit of a defensive flavor in that mid lane. Huey almost has his Warrior Enchant completed. We'll see whether he goes for that Sightstone again this time, or whether that was just a luxury purchase last time on his Rek'Sai.
Sharp, he wanted to try and force a turret dive, but hasn't been able to confirm any damage onto Chenny Boy. If Chenny Boy was at half health, even with barrier, they might have considered it, but not this time.
Yeah, there's a stun on a Day Shift to take so much damage from King and Chuffa. And you have to think that's largely the Annie at this stage of the game.
They had to use the Ren for slowed, so it didn't have a potential of an execute kill coming out from that ability, but it keeps Day Shifted firmly on the back foot, 15 CS behind already.
And this is a perfect example of why going that Sheen first can be so dangerous, because you don't have that added health pool of the Ruby Crystal. But we'll see whether the extra poke potential from Day Shifted is going to be enough in that bottom side.
And look who's top again.
Yep, Huey is there, set it up his tent, and Soul Strikes is going to find his way around. They're forced to get off here because, of course, there's a lot of minions for the Direwolves. Huey gets donked and destroyed, but it is going to be the follow-up kill, and now the 1v1 coming through from Perfection to see whether he can do anything here under Rich Homie. But Rich Homie pretty tanky now with that Phage.
And Rich Homie was smart to back away as, of course, the Equalizer was just available again. It would have been a completely one fight Perfection, but at 3-2, a massive step up from the last series.
Oh yeah, and even after he's had so much attention from the jungler here, of course, both junglers dying in that last exchange, but this Rumble is getting huge. And Rich Homie, I mean, he's got a couple of assists to his name as well, so Huey's been the one picking up the kills up there, and that's probably not going to help him out as far as this lane matchup's concerned.
Well, I mean, it's worth noting that basically they've completely monopolized Huey's time in the top lane for what is now a 3-2 Rumble against a 1-2-2 Aurelia. So definitely not the scoreboard reflecting all the time spent in top by Huey.
Yeah, and Perfection's, I mean, he really just wants to get levels. He just wants to have that equalizer, do enough damage in these fights, and it has a lot of base damage. So it's not that much of a big deal that Perfections is getting focused, whereas Rich Homie, he wants to be getting this farm. He wants to get to that Trinity Force as quickly as possible.
It's a big credit to Perfection because let's talk about the pre-game team talk when you're saying, all right, what's our strategy going in this game? Camp Perfection, after he's already really been outscaled in this particular matchup, makes a lot of sense. But for him to be ahead just shows how much he's been able to shake off that previous performance and play very well.
And he's a confident player here as well as Day Shifter getting aggressed on here by King. Throws an arrow at him, but he's taking a lot of damage. Beautiful Monsoon to lock King up as Fate's Call comes down on a Day Shifted. The Ren going to have to be used just defensively as Day Shifted comes in and turns it around. Chopper now going to explode. And the Ignite, it's not even going to be enough to finish off the Rich Gang bottom lane.
The MVP, though, is definitely Destiny. You saw all the passive resets come in to get the auto attacks, and the Ren did. Completely undone by being monsooned into the turret. Lovely Janna play. It's always great when you see the Monsoon be used aggressively.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful work. And then the Exhaust to immediately follow up after the flash. And Direwolves, nothing that they could do. And, you know, paying for that over-aggressive style on that bottom side.
It's one of those situations, we've seen this so often actually in the OPL. One team will get ahead, they'll force some advantages. You'll say, okay, this is the advantage, this is what they're going to prey upon. And then suddenly a double kill will be donated to the Corki in this situation.
Yeah.
And what was a 13 CS disadvantage against a favorable lane matchup, suddenly so much closer to that Trinity Force than he was just a moment ago.
Yeah, only about 900 gold now needed to finish off that item and have that gigantic spike for this next dragon that's coming up in only half a minute. Chuffer now trying to secure vision around here as well. Does have those mobility boots, so he can be that stun bot around the map very quickly. Actually going to stun up Huey here, but the rest of Rich Gang, they have come around. Their rotational powers in full force. There's the shockwave under Chuffer, immediately getting deleted. Perfections, he wants to come in and get the equalizer off. It's a great position. There's the Cataclysm as well, and they're melting to the power of the Direwolves. Rich Homie getting destroyed. Jenny Boy as well, out of mana completely, and Direwolves with a wonderful turnaround.
Fight in a choke like that against Rumble at your peril. The equalizer would have done 2,000, 3,000 AoE damage. The full channel completely going down on Rich Gang. Wonderful play from Perfection.
Yeah, and Direwolves now trying to secure their second dragon here. Huey is dead, of course. Does have that Void Rush. Probably wants to come in, but there's the smite down. Day Shifted so incredibly low as Direwolves try to turn it on the bottom lane of Rich Gang. And now Huey, he can't really go back in. The rest of his team a little bit too low.
We're going to see a replay here. Just wait for this. It's a wonderful engage on Chuffer, but the teleport starts being channeled and they think it's just Rumble. He's got no CC, but watch this equalizer. For the full 5 seconds, 3 members are completely burned down as Sharp manages to flash in to get the wild growth to keep Perfection alive. Beautiful team play right there. A necessary flash, but huge result from the Lulu.
Speaking of huge results, there's a huge result now from this Annie going for a 2v1 kill.
And this, not a mid-Annie, but the mid-Annie flavor certainly coming through from Chuffer.
Oh my gosh, Chuffer, you are a god. Fate's Call just to get him out here as well as Huey and Jenny Boy were coming down. Oh my goodness, that Annie.
The flavor of an aggressive support with the defensive utility of the Fate's Call, you have to chuckle, because that's Chuffer to a T, absolutely.
Oh yeah, and just having that extra bit of ability to get out with that Fate's Call there as well. Nothing Huey and Chenny Boy could do to answer for that one. And I apologize for the lack of play-by-play there because it was so comical watching this support Annie just decimate the bottom lane when they were at pretty low.
Sometimes there's just nothing more you can add as a caster to a situation. That was definitely
Spoke for itself.
No comment needed.
Soul Strike's going to be clearing out this mid wave as Sharp did vacate for a moment. In this top side of the map, Perfection's looking to go back up there and push Rich Homie into his turret.
Rich Homie laned very well in the previous series, but his team fighting, especially in the mid game, let him down. So far, the laning has been very tough for Aurelia. We've already seen Swiper show that Aurelia can absolutely run over a Rumble in this matchup. Rich Gang and Homie especially are struggling to deal with this Rumble.
Oh, yeah, and now he has that sort of the power spike that we speak about time and time again in both of those magic penetration items. Probably wants to pick up a needlessly large rod next, but it's a nice rotation here from Rich Gang to pick up their first outer turret, but answered in the top side of the map by Direwolves, as they are going to be taking out the respective opposite turret.
There's been a lot of rotations on Aurelias who are happy to stay in lane, happy to extend laning phases, because you have so much clear under the turret. So, of course, the roam is very, very smart here from the Direwolves.
Yeah, the back's actually going to come through here for the Direwolves, as they may actually concede a little bit more than they were expecting to. This inner turret going down very low, Phosphorus Bomb for a fair bit of poke here as well, and Direwolves lose a little more than they probably wanted to.
Absolutely. They tried to equalize this Aurelia here and put her on the back foot, but losing 2 turrets was not the order of the business.
Oh, no, and Rich Homie now has an opportunity to possibly even freeze out a wave coming through eventually. Not quite yet, though, as Trinity Force has been picked up from Day Shifted. Only the Zeal component needed from Rich Homie before he gets his. Skirmishes Saber actually onto Soul Strikes here, so he's wanting to fight people.
I feel like Skirmisher's Saber is by far more often used in this scene than any other, but Huey's got the ball on. He might be looking for an engage.
Yeah, looking to try and tunnel through onto someone, get that unburrowed for the knock-up into the Shockwave. It is a terrifying combination. Outer turret in the bottom lane going to fall down into the hands of Direwolves, but there's the Shockwave onto Soul Strikes. He cataclysms under the tower. Monsoon trying to help out. Destiny, though, the last turret shot, and Sharp picks up the kill. Perfection's now trying to turn this one around. Oh, Day Shifted does Valkyrie over that equalizer, but Perfection able to pick that one up, and Huey and Chenny Boy now on the run. The glitter lands from Sharp. Chenny Boy tries to turn around, but no mana, nowhere to go, and that is secured by Sharp.
The map movement from Direwolves is such a step up from their previous series. It's completely on point as they pick up the 3 kills. Once again, Chuff is in the right place at the right time. It's not a double kill, but the stun there cements the death.
Oh, that was fantastic play. And look at the bottom lane farm. 50 CS in the lead is King now. We spoke about his ability to farm creeps, and my gosh, is he going off this game.
He just always finds farm where you just don't know it exists. He's actually sitting on 2,500 gold. Probably going to be working towards a Bloodthirster. Doesn't have boots yet, but a lot of power coming from this next buy.
Oh, yeah. BF Sword and Vampiric Scepter straight out of the gate. You are completely correct. And 3,000 gold is now the lead here for the Direwolves. They have played out this mid-game beautifully. And the thing that we really have to mention is 0 dragons picked up for Rich Gang.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the big difference between the Rich Gang victories and the Rich Gang losses. You look at the dragons taken, 100% in their wins. We saw them fall down to immunity in the 4-1, and it seems like the flavor's being returned here.
Yeah, thus far, though, you have to hand it to Direwolves, turning around fights left, right, and center, and this is the polar opposite Perfections that we saw in their game versus the Chiefs. This Rumble, 5-2-2 now, going for a Raleig's Crystal Scepter, because he feels like it.
I guess the big difference between series has to be just the quality of top lane opposition. Not to bring down Rich Homie, but Swiper is by far the all-star top laner in this region. For him to get a solo kill on Perfection, who's done so much work in the same exact matchup, credit must go to Swiper.
Yeah, actually Blade Surge onto King here, though. He's trying to dance out of it, forced to flash out of his own team's Cataclysm here as Rich Homie gets taken down solo. Oh, the 3-man Shockwave to try and turn it around, but he's the equalizer. Doesn't really do anything this time as Chenny Boy's trying to run away. The Rend is still on him, now fades as Chopper, he jumps around, just bears Chenny in the face. The Q not going to finish him off. Of course, support Annie, not with that much damage, but Day Shifted now might be in a bit of trouble. Fate's Call has been popped, and he tries to go through the wall, but fails. Another beautiful Howling Gale from Destiny to try and clear this one up as Sharp. He finds him, the Monsoon for the disengage, but Rich Gang, they're still in trouble as Direwolves continue the chase, finally making it under a turret.
And only spared there, Rich Gang, by the fact that King has no boots. There was nothing to auto-attack in that fight, so didn't have the implied mobility of the passive. Sharp perhaps should have thought to whimsy this King, because he just cannot get to the fight, but they'll pick up the Dragon.
Yeah, another Dragon going over to Rich Gang, of course, with 2 members still in the base. The Scrying Orb just going to watch it fall down as Perfections tries to pick up some Flame Spitter damage there, but Soul Strikes easily smites that one away. That's the movement speed. That's the 3rd Dragon here to 0.
And Huey's on a bit of a lone stand, 3-2-2. Of course, he was the beneficiary of the trade kills in top earlier onto Perfection. But they are struggling to get together as a team here, Rich Gang. When their objective play metagame is countered, they find it very hard to win these games.
And they haven't been finding the picks like they were able to in their other games. And you have to put it down to Chenny Boy sort of being on this scaling, stand back and farm mid laner here. More utility being added, but can't really put pressure on that lane. And they weren't able to keep Sharp down. Of course, now with a 20 CS advantage, 2-0 and 5 on this Lulu, has a death cap. That is terrifying.
And even though it's one of Chenny Boy's trademark champions, you're correct. The flavor of difference between his Ahri performance and his Orianna performances is completely night and day. So when he goes on the Orianna, you think, all right, someone has to pick up the slack. Someone else has to be the pick-based champion, but they've got the Janna support, so there isn't going to be a pick support. Yeah. Huey's doing his best. He's got the 3-2-2, but because Rich Homie's so far behind, he can't be roaming the map and causing picks, and there's no one to pick up the slack for Chenny Boy. And maybe that's what we've learned about Rich Gang, is that so much of their mid-game play is based around his impact, his interaction. So if they fall behind on Dragon and don't have him to get picks, what's the next step? They're not sure.
Yeah, it's true, but their comp does scale relatively well into this game. Of course, not a lot of sort of uber late game damage coming through from the Direwolves if Rich Gang managed to dodge away from that equalizer, which can be devastating. Now they're going to be slowing for a whole lot more as well with that Riley's Crystal Scepter being picked up here from Perfections. If anyone gets hit by one of those harpoons, oh man, they're going to be slowed completely.
It's additive slow coming out of the Harpoons, one of the only abilities in the game that doesn't slow multiplicatively. At this point, it's about 90% slow from the 2 of them, which, again, it might as well be a stun.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous, and has a couple of charges there as well. We'll see whether they are going to be able to create picks with that one, of course. Bloodthirster now completed on the side of King. Doesn't have his boots yet, but is just going to be able to clear out these waves so quickly. What with the Glitter Lance as well? I mean, these creep waves are lasting for about half a second when they're in range of the Direwolves.
Worth knowing that with the 3rd Dragon buff, he does get half the movement speed of a regular Boots 1 with that buff. So obviously doing a lot of work here, their Dragon control.
Oh, yeah. And we're talking about as well, this is going to mean a whole lot for the later stages of this game. They are going to be getting towards that 5th Dragon mark at about 35 minutes into this game. Which
is something we usually associate with Rich Gang's play. They've been the ones that have been completely on top of Dragons, and that's been their win condition. So for them to have to really be on point with team fighting, something that they've been hit or miss with, there's a lot relying on the next engage coming out of Chenny Boy and the next team fight opted into by Rich Gang.
Yeah, and Direwolves actually pressuring Rich Gang out of their jungle here. Rich Gang understanding that they can't fight in those tight corridors. Of course, with the equalizer available, Perfections will be able to yet again completely melt them.
Yeah, and the power spikes are there for Rich, and they do have the double Trinity Force. Corky's definitely at a lower power force than King, but can still impact the fight so massively with that Trinity Force pickup. We see him picking up the red buff. They're setting themselves up for a fight, but Chenny Boy, again, he just doesn't have the AP to really stick any damage in a fight. He's going to pick up a nearly so large rod now, but both Orianna performances, I just don't like this Orianna coming out of Chenny Boy.
Yeah, it's not really working here as he's about 1,700 gold down as far as the attacking stats are concerned of Sharp. And Sharp, with that extra 30% ability power as well, that's such a big power spike now that he has 2 items.
And we've seen in previous engages, Sharp's still doing a lot of damage this Rich Gang side. It's going to be subsided a little bit by the Aegis coming through, but definitely not a big focus on magic resist coming through just yet, despite all the magic damage coming out of Perfection.
Oh, yeah, and they're sort of relying on that Aegis quite a lot here from Huey. It's an intelligent pickup, but they have to pick up the items themselves here. Of course, Banshee's Veil is going to want to be picked up from Day Shifted, and Rich Homie on his way to that one as well. But Chenny Boy doesn't have that many options as far as picking that one up. Of course, does already have the Athene's Unholy Grail, but that's sort of great for some early game magic resist, but it's not going to withstand sort of a massive Sharp with a Void Staff as well. Those Glitter Lances are still going to cut him up.
I actually really like what what Soul Strikes has done, picking up an Aegis, despite the fact that it's only an Orianna who's fallen behind. Of course, Corki does a lot of mixed damage. They're going to be able to shrug off just so much of the magic damage coming out of Rich Gang because they haven't been able to itemize magic penetration or flat amounts of AP just yet.
And Direwolves actually looking to set up for this Dragon a little bit early now as well. It's going to be a minute until that one is up. Chuffer chucking a ward over the backside. He's going to be noticed here, not swept just yet. Because Chuffer on this Annie has had a standout performance. Of course, that double kill in the bottom lane was fantastic, but also being able to just launch himself into these fights and get that bear where it needs to go. It's been beautiful.
It's such a different game where Rich Homie on the Aurelia has to group early against Rumble. She's not able to 1v1 Rumble when we saw Swiper running all over Perfection's Rumble in the previous series. It just changes the game so inherently strategically.
Yeah, actually Sharp forced to wings himself there a little bit, try and run around this fight. Gets caught by a dissonance here as Rich Homie finds Soul Strikes, takes a lot of health off him as well, blows that ultimate. And Protect is going to come through. Soul Strikes, he's going to get ulted here as the Wild Growth comes through, but he is not the focus anymore. King's trying to get some work done. Chuffer, he gets ulted up, but just wants to get the hell out of this fight. Sharp picks up the kill onto Huey. I have no idea how these Direwolves members are still alive, because Soul Strikes is basically dead, as is Chuffer, but King able to dance around the fight and bully everyone out.
Yeah, flashing health bars are so much more relevant against a Callista than with one, just because if she gets one of those Ren sets, we're going to see multiple kills coming out of King.
Oh yeah, Soul Strikes doesn't want to get hit by this Dragon here as well. This could be a little bit dangerous as members of Rich Gang coming through. The Blade Surge resets from Rich Homie, and he makes a hero of himself in this fight. Is going to fall down as King picks up the kill, but Callista with the Rend, able to do so much work. Day Shifted down in a lot of trouble, doesn't have any mana. The flash out from King picks up yet another kill. It's actually going to be Perfections. A double finally comes in as Chenny falls down, and Huey, he's alive, but his team isn't.
While it was a wonderful home guard teleport in from Rich Homie, we finally saw the Callista Ren sets coming in, getting the first kill, transitioning to the second. Janet's move speed, the only thing sparing her from a very fast triple kill, and the answering objective not worth, you'd say, from the teleport.
Oh yeah, and the Dragon going to go down, the 4th of the game now for Direwolves, and it's on a clock. Here's the replay.
Yeah, Rich Homie comes in and almost gets a Q reset on both those kills. So low were the members of Direwolves, but of course will die to King, and then he manages to secure the Dragon. He's all walking forward, so much mobility. Watch for the flash here to get out of the Corki damage. It's beautiful. Can change the target to Chenny Boy. Callista's going off. This is the King we know and love. He was really held down against Radia, but he's going big today.
Yeah, playing fantastically. Now has the Alacrity enchantment on his boots as well for even more mobility, going towards that Blade of the Ruin King for the double lifesteal as well. Soul Strikes might be caught out here just a little bit as Howling Gale not going to work as far as stopping that flag and drag. Nice delay by Soul Strikes on that combo. And they're looking at the Baron. There are pink wards around here, and Direwolves have yet to clear those ones out, but Rich Gang, they sort of have no right going towards this Baron now, considering the lead that the Direwolves have built up for themselves.
They're just now getting to their big second eyes. We see Deathcap finally finished on Chenny Boy for a decent burst of AP, but it's so far behind Sharp. It was the same story last time we saw his Orianna. 2 items against 3, 2 items against 4 is a big trough for Orianna to deal with, even with all the utility a kit brings.
Oh yeah, and you have to talk about Sharp here as well. I mean, we highlighted him as a player in our earlier series. 3-0-8 now has the Void Staff completed here as well. Those Glitter Lances really going to be ripping through Rich Gang. And He may have actually found himself slightly caught out here as the Dissonance did a fair bit of work to him, but he's going to be okay, of course. Lulu, pretty quick.
I was going to say, very hard to completely catch out an AP Lulu between the Whimsy, between the ultimate, the Glitter Lance for disengage. She's annoying. She's not a huge damage threat, but you'd have to say doing more damage than Orianna this game.
Oh yeah, Rich Homie now on the bottom side of the map, just trying to farm out this wave, create some pressure here on the bottom side and alleviate that Baron pressure. Perfections, though, is going to be able to pick up that farm, and Rich Homie, he can't stand in that lane with this Rumble, who now has that Zhonya's as well as the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. He's pretty tanky now on this champion.
And they're still about one item away, maybe a health item on both their tanks away from being able to shrug off the AoE magic damage coming out of Perfection and Sharp. There is the potential for this Aurelia to outscale the double AP, get on top of this Kalista, and assassinate her. And Chenny Boy, of course, will keep scaling as the game goes longer. Orianna's scaling with AP, perhaps the best in the game. But again, they have to buy time. They need more roams, like Rich Homie's split push there, to cause map pressure, because right now they cannot opt into a 5v5 fight.
Oh no, they need to do their best delaying tactics here, but you can see Rich Gang, they have got a lot of wards around that top side of the map. Soul Strike's actually going to bait out the ultimate here from Rich Homie, who just wants to clear out this wave. He's going to stop his back here as well. So Soul Strike's a little bit annoyed. Sharp going to get knocked up a little bit by that Howling Gale here, as well as the Dissonance just going to be shrugged here by Soul Strikes, who wants to go in. The Monsoon already down, but there's the Talisman of Ascension getting popped, and Chopper, oh my gosh, a Sharp tearing a hole in Destiny. There's the equalizer to create a wall here as Chenny Boy just gets slam dunked by Soul Strikes. He's going down low. Direwolves might need to back away from this one, but they've got to pick, and we'll see what they pick up for it.
Yeah, they had to use the equalizer just for a bit of initiation flavor with the Rylai's. They're looking for more picks, but there's no reason for Rich Gang to show their face forward. They've still got breathing space. It's only a minute 50 till Dragon.
Yeah, and that's a really tanky Aurelia getting hit by a Glitter Lance and it doing a lot of damage coming through from Sharp. Soul Strike's going to tank up this turret here as Rich Homie does a lot of damage back to him. Chopper's going to get a stun down, but he's very squishy. But King picks up the kill into Huey. Oh, the flash not quite enough in order to get out of that one, but the Wild Growth comes through and King is absolutely fine, still trying to dance around this one. The Phosphorus Bomb is enough in the end with Chenny Boy to pick up that kill as Perfections gets exhausted and destroyed. Rich Gang trying to turn around this fight. The Glitter Lance gets walked out of here by Destiny, and they're trying to pick up the last few kills. Day Shifted trying to get that Phage proc. Get that rage in order to get this one down. The tip is from the flash, and Chenny Boy gets eliminated. Day Shifted is going to fall down as Sharp's damage is too much. And Rich Gang forced to run away yet again. Oh, Sharp flashing out of the way, but the shields from both of these sides make it so difficult to work out what to do. Eventually, Chopper falls down, and Sharp, on about 10 health, 100 health, sorry, is going to try and do some work here. Dodges out of the way of the Howling Gale, and you are playing with fire, my friend, and I'm running out of voice.
Destiny lives on 4 health right there. It was a very, very close engage, and you see the difference in Direwolves team fights when they have Soul Strikes in the front, getting that Wild Growth, being tanky. You have to remember, he's the sole tank of this lineup. If he dies at the start, obviously he's tanking the turret, falling really low, so we see King getting a lot of damage in the mid lane. If he falls low at the start of the fight and dies, they have no tank. They all have to evacuate, they all have to split up, and that's where Rich Gang can strike.
And Perfections is actually ignoring the Leandri's Torment here. He's just picked up that needlessly large rod. I think he's probably going for a Rabadon's Death Cap because he has no other option considering the removal of that DFG. Not that you'd ever build a DFG on a Rumble anyway, but do you think that Leandri's with the Rylai's especially would be really good? As Huey, he's just going to get Cataclysm, does use that Block of the Iron Solari, but he is not going to be okay as the Equalizer's splitting up the team. Soul Strikes, though, he gets Wild Growth, trying to be the tank for his team. Rich Homie's going to get destroyed. Soul Strikes, so aggressive, but they trade tank for tank here, and King trying to come in for more damage. This Kalista is huge in the front line now. The flash out of the way of that shockwave there as well, but it's not quite enough as Huey is pretty tanky. The double kill eventually comes down as King picks up a kill from the grave. Sharp now copping the dissonance, sorry, and he's going to have to back away.
Feels like Direwolves went full deathmatch mode in that series. Remember, they killed the jungler first with the first pick on Huey. They could have easily rotated back to the dragon and taken an uncontested dragon 5v4 against no smite, but actually they now have to back away because of their low health values. They've just lost the chance to pick up an uncontested 5th dragon.
Perfections does have his teleport available and Rich Homie doesn't, though. He can go back to base and pick up an item, but you're exactly right. Soul Strike's only just sort of leaving the base at this stage, and they will have to set up this siege yet again.
Yeah, it's still a bit of a stretch for Rich Gang to win a fight after the decisive one there. Perfection already has his ultimate up. They can't. It's going to be difficult to contest, but it was impossible a moment ago. Now again, it's a question mark.
We'll see whether Rich Gang do put down the pressure necessary to solidify a spot in this game, because right now they've got shut out. 5,000 gold is the lead. They are even on turrets at this stage, so that is definitely something to say about Rich Gang here. But this 5th dragon, this is what it is all about. King's able to get, the burrow in with the shockwave, only a little bit effective. Sharp is going to get removed straight away though. King able to get the damage down on a Rich Homie. Destiny is now the focus. Very, very squishy. Double kill already for King. Triple kill now as he smashes his way through this fight. A quadra kill, and King, he wants the penta, but day shifted. He's running towards the mid lane. We'll see whether King can dance his way over there. He's looking for it. He wants to try and find it. But Day Shifted, I don't think he wants to give it to him. No,
that's the 20-second window. They're going for the maximum range. He looked for the jump over. He's still following him. He's still looking for it.
He's got a 5% extra movement speed here as well. As Day Shifted, he even picks up the blue buff. Tanking up the turret is King, but he's not going to get the second penta of the OPL.
King bloodthirsty for another MVP, you'd have to say, but it was a wonderful engage. If we see the replay, I'll point it out, but it was a wonderful borrow into the Orianna shockwave. The important factor, though, was it was nowhere near King. And when you're at the back of the fight as Kalista, with all the items he has, the huge bevy of attack damage and the Hurricane, it's very easy.
Oh, yeah, not to mention the incredible amount of lifesteal as well. I mean, he was shrugging off Rich Homie's damage just because every auto attack from Aurelia was just getting healed in one of King's.
Yeah, they need to keep this shockwave till very late in the fight, or they just cannot deal with the amount of pressure coming from Kalista in the backline.
You have to say, though, I mean, Rich Gang's kill distribution is looking beautiful.
Everyone has a shot there except for John, and she's very sad at the back. Speaking of sad, we see Direwolves rotating very smartly into the mid lane here. They're going to get an uncontested inhibitor turret.
Yeah, just ignoring that Baron completely, not wanting to go into no vision, and they'll just take this inhibitor. They don't even care.
No, they take it so fast with all the attack speed and flat attack damage on Kalista, and completely out-rotated the Rich Gang.
Yeah, and now they know exactly where Rich Gang are. Perfections is actually looking to try and start something up here. There's the teleporter ascension. Not quite the tippers they were looking for, but look at that equalizer. Day Shifted gets destroyed. Zonya's Hourglass was used by Chenny Boy, but not enough as King's trying to dance into this one. Half of his health bar is now a shield, and the Direwolves, what a performance this game.
They're going to try and close it out. Not so easy. They don't have that many ranged auto attackers, but King, he's still bloodthirsty.
Yeah, he doesn't care about structures. Oh, Destiny gets the monsoon of his life! Sacrifices himself, but they kill the Kalista, and Direwolves now have to back away.
And twice this game, 2 of those 4 deaths on King were completely getting outfoxed by the monsoon from Destiny.
Oh,
He's the only one that has the number of this Kalista.
That was beautiful to see. And Destiny, he may have died for it, but he's definitely going to call worth on that one, as that's actually going to keep Rich Gang in this game for just a little bit longer.
They're not in touching distance, though. It's about 10,000 gold the lead. They're trying to show up to Baron here. They have the blue wards on it. They know it's up. Rich Gang aren't, so Direwolves aren't really in a position to contest it without King being available. It's impossible. They're against a 5th dragon buff.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, this is the desperation Baron play that you've got to go for if you can. The ball is in a decent position, but there's the Cataclysm into the equalizer as well. Soul Strikes, he's huge. He's just going to auto-attack Huey. Nothing he can do as Rich Homie gets burned to the ground. And Rich Gang members are just falling left, right, and center. I don't even know whether King was there. He wasn't there for that fight. It was 4v5. And Soul Strike's just so huge on this Jarvan.
4v5, but with all the stats, the 12% AD and AP, they're going to shrug off the inhibitor turret. They're going to shrug off all the turrets. In fact, they're going to try and finish.
Yeah, they're going to go straight for this Nexus. Soul Strikes, he doesn't care. Shields galore. And Destiny, nothing he can do to protect his team. It was a decent attempt at a desperation play from Rich Gang, but Direwolves, they showed it to them this game.
Yeah, the Direwolves have played so impressively. You have to love that pick from Sharp as they all pile on top of Destiny. No Monsoon going to help her this time. But she lives.
Yeah, lived just as the Nexus is going to fall down. Destiny gets the last laugh as the Nexus falls. And GG, well played to the Direwolves, showing us that they are that top 4 team that we predicted.
And King managed to get there right at the last second to pick up the kill on Destiny. Worth, he didn't get the Penta, but finally killed that Janna.
Oh, I would have wanted to kill Day Shifted, though. I mean, denying that Penta, that was some cheeky play, but congratulations to Direwolves. Let's have a look at a replay to just see how they did it.
So we're here. I mean, already a nice lead for Direwolves, but I'm sure this fight is going to have plenty of fireworks. We'll roll the tape. This is contesting for, I believe, the 5th dragon at this point. And the unburrow into ultimate was massive, but look at the backline right here. King is hopping around, able to take down Rich Homie. Rich Homie never got to the real tanky spot this game. The triple kill comes in. It's so easy on Kalista. She manages to chase for the Quadra. And, I mean, Kalista, she goes off. She goes off big.
Oh, yeah, and if you're not destroyed at the beginning of a fight, that's what happens. And the likes of these Quadras coming through from King just demonstrate how difficult it is to contain this Kalista, especially with that particular build path. It's fantastic to see, and congratulations now to the Direwolves.
Yeah, they deserve the plaudits. They came back after that earlier loss to the Chiefs. They look strong, a bit like Legacy. And when those two teams tussle, we'll try to hopefully going to see very soon. Could be a lot of fireworks. They haven't been able to match up to the Chiefs, but there's a really strong second-place team between the Direwolves and Legacy.
Oh, yeah, and we'll see whether next week they can come through with more of these performances. Of course, we're going to have different teams facing off against one another. Is someone going to finally find the Achilles heel of the Chiefs and push them out of that top spot? Of course, undefeated thus far. And we've got so many teams now on that 3-1 mark who are looking really, really good.
Yeah, as you say, and if you want to go and look at the oce.lollysports.com website, all the standings, of course, so many teams grouped up right there next to the Chiefs, the schedule, and any other information, all available on that website.
Yeah, you can go to check out the VODs of our games, but that's going to bring us to the end of our broadcast for tonight. Of course, on behalf of myself, Papa Smithy, of course, Pastry Time, who was here for the middle couple of games, and our whole production crew, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on Thursday.